People today cling to technology, to those glowing soil-measuring devices in the night, and to fertilizer pellets advertised like cheap miracles. But what leaves historians stunned is the truth buried beneath the mud of the Middle Ages. Those humble gardens yielded more than many modern farms, so rich in nutrients that their soil revived itself season after season without a drop of chemicals or the rumble of a plow. When the manuscripts of the Cluny monastery, now faded to the color of old honey, are reopened, one encounters records that make modern reasoning falter. The monks, armed with nothing more than wooden hoes, dry straw, and hardened hands, harvested enough vegetables to feed an entire community while the soil remained fertile, as though nourished from within by a hidden spring. They grew more with almost nothing at all, while we grow less, even though we hold everything in our hands. That harsh contrast rings like a distant echo, reminding us that some knowledge has been forgotten for so long it almost seems never to have existed. And when we look into each fragment of historical evidence, we realize that what gave that strength its power was not some mystical art, but a natural logic humanity has strayed from in its chase for quick convenience. If you can sense the faint resonance of truth beneath that ancient soil, leave a small sign. Who knows, your curiosity might just open the next door. Imagine a gray stone monastery on a damp, cold hilltop, where square and circular gardens are drawn by furrows in the soil like secret sigils. The monks recorded meticulously each sowing season, each lunar week, each kind of fallen leaf used to feed the earth. And strangely enough, after many centuries, those places have remained fertile in a way that many modern farms, even with machines and chemicals, can only envy in helplessness. When we compare these results with today's cutting-edge cultivation models, the question why is no longer a single question, but becomes a crack in the belief that we have truly advanced. Because if those ancient gardens yielded more and preserved the soul of the soil for longer, then perhaps what modern science has yet to recreate is not merely a technique, but an entirely different way of perceiving the relationship between humans and the earth. And the most frightening thing is this: what you have heard up to this moment may be only the first thin shell among the secrets the monastery walls are still silently hiding. There is one thing that researchers of experimental history rarely dare to say outright. The deeper one digs into the monastic gardens of the Middle Ages, the more details appear that do not align with any modern agronomic logic. In a decayed manuscript found after the collapse of a stone vault at Fécamp Abbey, a note was discovered framed in red ink, like a warning from the past. "Let none alter the forbidden order, for the soil remembers." That sentence resounds like a line from a hidden chronicle our age has accidentally, or deliberately, forgotten. And this is the twist that startles the researchers. They discovered that the ancient soil samples preserved a nearly perfect microbial structure, similar to that of primeval forests, even though the land had been cultivated continuously for hundreds of years. This completely contradicts modern understanding that long-cultivated soil inevitably degrades unless heavily supplemented with chemical fertilizers. Yet those ancient gardens somehow still breathed, still recovered, still remained nutrient-rich as if they had never been exploited. A bold hypothesis was proposed, then quickly withdrawn from the official conference. Could it be that the monks possessed a natural law now lost, a method of coordinating plants that modern science has yet to decipher, but which was recorded sporadically in the manuscripts as though meant only for those who know how to read between the lines? This question is not meant to invoke mysticism, but to remind us that truth is sometimes concealed not because it is too dangerous, but because it is too foreign to the mindset of the time. If you have ever encountered something similar, an old technique strange yet unexpectedly effective, leave a small account of it. Who knows, your story might reveal another piece of a secret that has slept quietly for centuries. What leads modern people easily into misunderstanding is the belief that ancient gardens survived only through luck or a favorable climate. But the fragmented records from the St. Gall monastery tell a completely opposite story. Those gardens were designed like a living organism, where each plant not only grew but also protected, nourished, and responded to every shift in the soil, completely overturning the assumption that only modern science knows how to optimize ecosystems. The medieval people accomplished it through intuition and knowledge passed down through generations. And what sends chills through scholars is the harsh truth. The yields from those models sometimes surpassed even today's farms that rely on chemical fertilizers, using materials we often consider mere waste. Wait until you hear this. In a surviving journal entry, a monk wrote that the sentinel plants, grown along the outer ring, not only repelled pests, but also kept the soil warm on cold nights, creating a natural thermal barrier that modern science would only later replicate with greenhouses and environmental sensors. This not only proves they understood the soil, but also understood the breathing rhythm of nature in ways that modern devices may not fully detect. And then an even stranger detail appears. Many ancient gardens could recover on their own after a harsh season without needing anything added, as though some hidden mechanism had been built into them since ages long past. And then the real mystery appears. Interestingly, the more we read the old archival manuscripts, the more it seems the medieval people understood their soil better than we do with our dozens of pH meters, moisture sensors, and glossy apps on our phones. They didn't need to look at a screen to know whether the soil was tired or healthy. They only had to grab a handful and smell it to understand something that modern devices sometimes measure incorrectly because the battery dies. A monk at Canterbury Abbey even noted, "When the soil has no scent, let it rest as an old man needs sleep." Those words, which at first sound antiquated, strangely align with today's research on microbial recovery cycles in soil, while we often plant back-to-back crops as if chasing end-of-quarter KPIs. A gentle jab, perhaps, but hard to deny. They tended the soil with patience, while we sometimes tend it with productivity pressure. That is why, in many cases, their soil retained a vitality that modern soil can only regain with industrial fertilizers and online courses. And here is the point that makes many modern agronomists frown. The ancient gardens increasingly prove that simplicity is sometimes the ultimate technique. A paradox hard to swallow, but the deeper we dig, the truer it becomes. And this is only the beginning of a much longer chain of secrets behind it. Wait until you hear what comes next. There are passages in medieval agronomic manuscripts that make the reader feel as though they are entering an ancient ritual rather than a gardening handbook. A 12th century handwritten text found in a wall recess of Worcester Abbey describes the nights when the soil changes its breath, moments when the monks advised not touching any garden bed. They believed the earth had sacred hours when its microbial layers harmonized, exchanging energy like a silent ceremony. The strange thing is that modern science, when surveying biological activity in soil based on temperature-moisture cycles, records synchronized oscillations occurring exactly during the time frames described in the manuscript. A coincidence, or proof that they understood the soil in a very different way. Another note, bordered in blue ink, a color used only for important matters, mentions a point of silence in the garden, a patch of land left unplanted so that the soil may remember itself. The concept may sound mystical, but recent studies on soil regeneration call this a fallow zone, where microbial systems recover more strongly than through any form of fertilization. The medieval people, through intuition and generations of observation, left behind methods that seem taught to them by nature itself, while we are merely relearning them after centuries. But the most chilling detail appears at the end of the manuscript. He who breaks the discipline of the earth shall harvest a season he does not understand. That warning reads like an echo from an age when earth and humanity spoke to one another in a language long lost. What do you think? Do you believe the soil truly remembers, or is it only nature's coincidence? Leave a thought. Sometimes your very question opens a tunnel leading to deeper secrets. Going deeper into the ancient gardens, we encounter a paradox that makes many researchers pause their pens. The plants considered the most humble in medieval records turn out to be the strongest links in the ecosystem the monks had painstakingly built. In a withered 11th century manuscript, there is a passage describing beans, peas, and legumes buried deep in the soil as drops of blood nourishing the hidden soul of the garden. When scientists analyzed soil samples around these locations, they found microbial density recovering at twice the rate of areas without them, a number that leaves even today's agricultural technology specialists speechless. What is even more surprising is that this arrangement was not merely for adding nutrients. It created a network of connections that medieval people believed kept the soil from falling into a long sleep. And strangely enough, that model aligns almost perfectly with the concept of soil cycling that modern agricultural universities consider fundamental for survival. But then, amid these harmonious notes, there appears a puzzling line. When the circle breaks, the season will turn against man. No one knows whether this circle refers to a crop cycle or something deeper. But even the forgotten plots left untouched for centuries still bear traces of the rotational structure they applied. A legacy so enduring that not even wind and time could erase it. And this is only the next layer. What lies beyond is enough to make many shudder. In the gardens of the northern monasteries, another unusual trace was found. Strong scented plants arranged in a watch circle, with a cluster placed at each corner of the garden as though they were standing guard. Lavender beside cabbage, basil next to tomatoes, rosemary threading between the bean beds. An arrangement so delicate it seems accidental, yet the more botanists examined it, the more they realized nothing was accidental at all. Together they formed a wall of scent that completely disoriented pests and harmful insects. A defensive mechanism that many modern farms still cannot fully replicate. Even more mysterious are the scattered notes mentioning the invisible veil, referring to the way the fragrances resonate with one another to create a protective layer that keeps the entire crop safe without a single drop of pesticide. This has left more than a few experts today red-faced, for we have spent hundreds of years studying biochemistry only to circle back to something medieval people did by instinct. But the final sentence in the manuscript is what truly renders the reader motionless. When the fragrance falls silent, the garden will speak of what is to come. A warning, an experience, or something deeper that has yet to be deciphered. Don't look away. The next part is wrapped in even thicker fog. When modern scholars studied more deeply the special forces within medieval gardens, they did not expect that creatures no bigger than a fingernail, beetles with black shells shimmering like the armor of tiny knights, would play such a pivotal role. Dung beetles, which industrial agriculture today considers mere nuisance insects, were once respected by the monks as the underground workers of the soil. A 13th century record even describes them as nameless warriors who uphold the entire harvest. It sounds exaggerated, until agronomists measured the gases, nutrients, and aeration levels in soil beds marked by their presence, far surpassing the standards of modern farms funded with millions in gold by the nobility of the time and by today's agricultural corporations. That is the moment the drama unfolded. The initial experimental data was requested by certain funding groups to be temporarily withheld, citing insufficient verification. But the irony is this. Anonymous monks knew how to harness the power of beetles 800 years ago without a laboratory, while we must engage in political debates over whether a tiny creature should be allowed to do what million-dollar machines still fail to accomplish. And then the final line of the manuscript left the entire research team frozen. "Let the knights of the earth do their work. He who hinders them shall lose the harvest." A sentence that reads like a warning addressed to both ancient kingdoms and the modern world. But what comes next is what truly shakes every hypothesis. There is one thing that archaeobotanists still debate to this day. How could medieval people with no microscopes, no chemicals, no machinery create gardens so enduring that they survived time, war, and harsh climates? The final answer lies not in some mystical secret, but in a subtlety that modern humans have sometimes lost. The ancient garden systems we have just walked through, from compost fermented like a primitive laboratory, to plant beds protected by herbal scents, to the earth knights such as dung beetles, to the planting circles that kept the soil's breath in rhythm, were not merely techniques, but a philosophy of life. Medieval people did not see the soil as a tool, but as an ally. They did not force nature to submit, but cooperated with it as an equal partner. And that is precisely what created the resilience that modern agriculture tries to replicate with technology, yet still cannot touch the true spirit of. The lesson here, though it sounds simple, sinks down to the deepest roots of every piece of land. Nature does not need us very much, but we cannot live without nature. And sometimes, to move forward, we must learn to return to the place where all knowledge once began. If one of these medieval secrets made you think, leave a small comment. Who knows, your perspective might become the next piece of this series. And if you want to continue the journey of exploring lost knowledge, you can subscribe. The path ahead is long, and I would truly love to have you along.